Chaos 2 is up on the table saw. Just taking a couple photos of it and shooting some close-ups for all the folks who are in the collaboration so they can see their names on the blank. We're going to get it off the table saw. We're going to get our sled up on the saw, and we're going to cut our first set of 30-degree angles. I got asked by a good friend of mine if I would show making some of the 30-degree cuts so that he could kind of see how I went about doing it. For the cuts, I am going to be using a Miter 5000 sled that is made by Incra. I love this sled because I can set an angle, I can move the sled, I can come back to that angle, and I'll get perfect cuts every single time. So what I've done is I've set my sled to 30 degrees from the blade. The most important part of this is you must have a flat edge. Now on the back of this blank, I had trimmed both sides of this 2-up, so the back side is perfectly square, so I don't have to do any additional work. Later on, when I come back and I want to cut the 30 degrees in the opposite direction, I'll have to trim one of these long sides off, square it up so that I can run the blank through the blade from the side of the blank and get the other 30-degree angle. I'm going to go ahead and get my dust collector turned on. We'll get the saw fired up, and we're going to make a few cuts. All of my 30-degree cuts are now complete. The next step is we'll get everything off the saw top, we'll clean all the dust off, we'll put the blank back together or just lay the pieces in order, and then we'll begin mixing them up the best we can so that hopefully we don't have any two pieces that are the same beside each other. At that point, glue up begins. Right, everybody, Chaos 1 is on the saw and ready to be cut into blank strips. We're going to rip it right along there, and then we'll use a fence to run the blank through the blade at 3/4 of an inch and cut a whole bunch of 3/4 inch strips from this blank. After I get those strips cut, we will take them to the bandsaw and cut them into 5-inch blanks. I went ahead and set my fence 3/4 of an inch away from the blade on the left side because I've got a piece of tape here, and that lets me put a nice straight mark on that tape so I can line my blank up with the mark and make 3/4 of an inch cuts every time. Now we simply move our fence to the opposite side, and we're ready to start cutting our blanks. Before we do, I forgot to show you guys, here are all the 30-degree cuts on Chaos 2. Take a look at that. Pretty sweet. Once we get these pieces cut off of this blank, the long slices, I'll start the glue up on this one because I wanted to do that before I cleaned up. You know, I want to do all of my cutting, so we'll get everything cleaned up. Then we'll start gluing these up in 2s. Once we use all our clamps, we'll have some free time while we wait. We'll take these long strips over to the bandsaw and begin cutting them into 5-inch blanks. Here's a quick peek at all of the long Chaos strips. We had very little waste. Here's a piece here. I'll lose this piece, so it'll be about a 4-inch piece. And there were a couple little pieces that kind of hooked off. That's all we lost at the other end. We have a little half-size piece. I'll be able to glue that up to something else. But I am super happy with these blanks. Before we go ahead and cut them to 5 inches, it's time to glue up. You can see I vacuumed the floor. The saw is cleaned off. I'm gonna go get my glue, lay some paper down, and we are gonna get as many blanks glued up tonight as we can. I've got her all mixed up. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Gonna go grab my paintbrush and start gluing. Well, I made good progress. I got maybe a quarter of the blank glued up. It's right here on the ground in twos. Gonna let that glue dry. Now I'm gonna turn my attention to the long strips. I've got my bandsaw all cleaned off, set up, and ready to go. And right here is my 5-inch mark. So we are gonna start cutting blanks. Check this out. 42 beautiful Chaos blanks, all cut to 5 inches. If we move over this way, here are the short blanks that didn't quite make it. There might be a couple of them that are around 4 inches. The rest are probably 2 3/4, somewhere in that range up. And these blanks, these are all longer than 5 inches. Had I gone ahead and cut these blanks to 5 inches, I would have had just a little old tiny nub that would have been good for nothing. So I left them long. These 6 blanks are going to go in the drawing with all of these blanks. And there is a potential that someone could get lucky and get a blank longer than 5 inches. I'm not going to put these shorties in there. Everybody gets at least a 5-inch blank. This is going to wrap it up for me, guys. I could stay out here longer and do another glue up. These aren't quite ready yet. Everything's looking great over here. I think I'm going to call it quits. We'll come back out tomorrow after work and do the next set of glue ups. And over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, we'll get these glued into a large blank. And hopefully Friday to Saturday, we can cut the other 30-degree angle on our Chaos 2 blank and be ready to get those cut into blanks, hopefully at the end of the weekend. Keep your fingers crossed.